Welcome back to the e-scholars. In the earlier video, I had given you the explanation of this chapter. Now let us understand the theme of the story. The theme of the story is that most human beings are prone or likely to fall into the trap of material benefits. However, every human being has an essential goodness which can be awakened through love and understanding. Human beings have the tendency to redeem themselves by giving up dishonest ways and renouncing luxuries and material benefits. The theme of the story has been developed with the help of the metaphor of the rat trap. The peddler of the rat traps calls this world a big rat trap, as he feels that the luxuries and the material benefits of the world, such as riches and joys, shelter and food, heat and clothing, are nothing but baits that allure or tempt a person to fall into a rat trap. As soon as anyone takes a bait or touches the bait, the rat trap closes in on him, and then everything comes to an end. Ironically, the peddler himself becomes a rat. He just can't resist the temptation of stealing the bait of 30 kroner of hospitable or generous crofter and steals the money. But after having stolen the money, he is afraid of being caught and decides to go through the woods. Thus, the actions of the peddler after stealing the 30 kroner of the old crofter reveal the inner conflict, tension, and lack of peace of a person who touches the bait of temptation. It is the kind, loving, compassionate, and generous nature of Ironmaster's daughter, Edla Wilmanson, which awakens the conscience of the peddler and brings about a drastic change in him. Miss Edla Wilmanson's kindness and hospitality and the treatment he gets as a captain shows how love and understanding can transform a person. The peddler raises himself above petty temptations and is a total reformed person now. Thus, the story comes a full circle with the ending. The ending also shows the goodness of humanity exhibited here through Miss Edla Wilmanson. The happy ending also highlights the optimism in the story and belief in the essential goodness of a man, which can be awakened through love and understanding. Thus, this story inspires the readers to do good deeds. The story is both entertaining and philosophical, as it shows how different people react to different situations. After stealing the 30 kroner of the old crofter, the peddler feels afraid of being caught and decides to go through the woods. He is even afraid to go to the manor house and declines the invitation as he fears that he might get caught with the stolen money. Thus, the actions of the peddler after stealing the 30 kroner of the old crofter reveal the inner conflicts and tension within him. He gets peace only after returning the money. Thus, he redeems himself by returning the stolen money and wins our admiration. The reactions of the blacksmiths to the tramp's request for shelter show how casual and indifferent human beings can be. The master blacksmith nods a haughty consent to the poor peddler without even honoring him with a single word. Evidently, he regards him as an insignificant person. The ironmaster who comes on his nightly rounds of inspection behaves differently. He walks closely up to him and looks him over carefully. Then he removes his slouch hat to get a better view of his face. In the uncertain light of the furnace, he mistakes him for his old regimental comrade and invites him to come home with him. But the stranger declines the invitation as he fears of being caught with the stolen money. Later, the ironmaster sends his daughter to persuade him to spend Christmas Eve with them. This part of the story highlights the different reactions of different people to the same set of circumstances. Thus, this part of the story reveals the shades of human nature. The U-turn in Ironmaster's attitude towards the peddler shows how selfish and ignorant human beings can be. Mistaking the peddler for his old regimental comrade, he invites him home and asks him to spend Christmas Eve with them. But when the stranger declines the invitation, the ironmaster sends his daughter, hoping that she, with her better persuasive powers and skills, will be able to convince him. But when the ironmaster sees him in broad daylight, he shows his displeasure, and instead of realizing his own mistake, he puts the blame on the peddler and threatens to call the sheriff. The metaphor of the world being a rat trap saves the situation for the peddler, but the ironmaster wants him to leave immediately. The ironmaster's daughter, Miss Angela Williamson, is the only one who behaves with him in a kind and friendly manner. She has a wonderful power of observation and has ability to judge people correctly. From the stranger's frightened looks, she concludes that he is either a thief or a runaway prisoner. She intervenes on behalf of the stranger and persuades her father to let him stay and spend Christmas Eve with them. The ironmaster's daughter's nice treatment and her love and understanding brings out the essential goodness in him, and he redeems himself by returning the stolen money, and even gifts Miss Angela Williamson with a Christmas present and writes a letter to her signed as Captain Once Thoroughly. It was as captain that he got the power to clear himself. In other words, you can say that it was as captain that he got the strength to come out of that trap. The story also focuses on human loneliness and the need to bond with others. You will see that in the story, everyone portrays a trait of loneliness. All the characters in the story, be it the rat trap peddler, or the old crofter, the ironmaster, or the ironmaster's daughter, are lonely in their own way. The rat trap peddler keeps moving from one place to other to sell his rat traps. No one can imagine how sad and monotonous life can appear to such a vagabond who plods along the road, left to his own meditations or thoughts. He calls the world a big rat trap. This twisted ideology of the peddler, where he compares the riches and joys, shelter and food and other comforts and luxuries of life to the baits kept in a rat trap, originates due to lack of people in his life. Due to this, the peddler believes that no one can show an act of kindness without any personal gain. He does not know unconditional love, trust, or empathy. The world has never been very kind to him. Whenever he asks for shelter for the night, he is either refused or is looked down upon by people. Even the master blacksmith gives him an hearty consent without even honoring him with a single word, Thus, it can be concluded that he suffers from loneliness. The old crofter who gave shelter to the peddler is also lonely, as he has neither wife nor child. Hence, he feels happy to get peddler to doctor in his loneliness. The ironmaster is also quite lonely in his manor house. His wife Elizabeth has died, and his sons are abroad. There is no one at home except his oldest daughter and himself. His repeated requests to the stranger or the peddler, whom he mistakes him for his old regimental comrade and invites him home and asks him to spend Christmas Eve with them, shows his need for human bonding. The stranger declines the invitation not because he is against the bonding, but because he fears he might get caught with the stolen money. How does the peddler interpret the acts of kindness and hospitality shown by the crofter ironmaster and his daughter? The peddler robbed the generous crofter, who willingly let him in, served him porridge for supper, and even gave tobacco for his pipe. He even played cards with him till bedtime. But the peddler felt that the old crofter was only being too nice with him, as he was lonely and had neither wife nor child. The peddler felt that the ironmaster's act of kindness and hospitality towards him was only because he mistook him for his old regimental comrade, and was moved to see him in such a pitiable state. But his behavior changed drastically when he saw the well groomed stranger the next morning in broad daylight and realized his mistake. He showed his displeasure and demanded an explanation from the man. Though the peddler defended himself and said that he never pretended to be someone else, the ironmaster felt that it was not honest on his part not to have revealed his own identity before, and threatened to call the sheriff. But it was only Ezra Wilmington, the ironmaster's daughter, who behaved with him in a nice and friendly manner. He was surprised to see the contrasting style of behavior of the father and the daughter. He was touched by the kindness, care, understanding, and generosity of the young girl. Let's go through the important points. The peddler felt that the crofter was only being too nice with him because he was lonely, as he had neither wife nor child. The ironmaster was kind to him at first, as he mistook him for an old regimental comrade. But his behavior changed drastically when he saw the well groomed stranger in broad daylight and realized his mistake. It was only Ethla Wilmington, the ironmaster's daughter, who behaved with him in a kind and friendly manner. He was touched by the kindness, care, and intervention of Edla on his behalf. What are the instances in the story that show that the character of the ironmaster is different from that of his daughter? The ironmaster was impulsive, whereas his daughter was kind, sympathetic, generous, understanding, and thoughtful. The ironmaster saw the stranger in the uncertain light of the furnace and mistook him for his old regimental comrade. He was moved to see him in such a pitiable state and asked him to come home with him and spend Christmas Eve with them. But his behavior changed drastically when he saw the well groomed stranger the next morning in broad daylight and realized his mistake. He showed his displeasure and demanded an explanation from the man. though the peddler defended himself and said that he never pretended to be someone else. The ironmaster called him dishonest and threatened to call sheriff. But the ironmaster's daughter was very observant, and she observed that the man was afraid, and she thought that either he was a thief or a runaway prisoner. She treated him nicely even after knowing his real identity. She even told him that the suit he wore was a Christmas present and he need not return it back, and even invited him to spend next Christmas with them. The peddler was totally speechless and stared at the young girl with boundless amazement. So you can see from these instances that the ironmaster was quite impulsive, but his daughter was kind, gentle, compassionate, and generous. The ironmaster took hasty decisions without thinking carefully, whereas his daughter was kind, compassionate, and sympathetic. The ironmaster saw the peddler in the dim light of the furnace and mistook him for his old regimental comrade. He showed his displeasure when he saw the stranger in broad daylight and realized his mistake. But the ironmaster's daughter had great observation skills. She observed that the man was afraid and thought that either he was a thief or a runaway prisoner. She treated him nicely even after knowing the truth about him. The story has many instances of unexpected reactions from the characters to others' behavior. Pick out instances of these surprises. There are many instances of unexpected reactions from the characters to others' behavior. For instance, the peddler is surprised at the warm welcome, generous supper, cheerful company, and intimate confidences by the old crofter. The peddler seems surprised when the ironmaster addresses him as Captain Von Starley, and the third instance is the peddler's comparison of the world to a rat trap, which makes the ironmaster laugh, and he drops the idea of calling in the sheriff. The peddler looks at the young girl in boundless amazement when she tells him that the suit is a Christmas present and even invites him to spend next Christmas with them. He is totally speechless and stares at her in boundless amazement. She is gentle, kind, and friendly even after knowing his real identity. There are many instances of unexpected reactions from the characters to others' behavior. For instance, the peddler is surprised by the warm behavior of the old crofter. He is even surprised when the ironmaster addresses him as Captain Von Starley. The peddler's comparison of the world to a rat trap makes the ironmaster laugh, and he drops the idea of calling in the sheriff. The peddler looks at the young girl in boundless amazement when she tells him that the suit is a Christmas present and even invites him to spend next Christmas with them. What makes the peddler finally change his ways? Edla Wilmanson, the ironmaster's daughter, treated the tramp in a kind and friendly manner. She was extremely nice to him. She did not think it was proper on their part to chase away a person whom they had asked to come to their house and had promised Christmas cheer. She understood the reality of the peddler's life and wanted him to enjoy a day of peace with them. Hence, she was kind and compassionate towards the peddler even after knowing the truth about him. She offered him a suit as a Christmas present and even invited him to spend next Christmas with them. It was Ethel Wilmanson's love and understanding, which awakens the essential goodness in the peddler, and he finally changed his ways. Edla Wilmanson, the ironmaster's daughter, treated the peddler in a kind and friendly manner. She was nice to him even after knowing his real identity. Her kind treatment awakened the essential goodness in him and brought about a drastic change in him, and finally he changed his ways. How does the metaphor of the rat trap serve to highlight the human predicament? The peddler doesn't think kindly of the world and its people. For him, the world is a big rat trap. The luxuries of the world are the baits that tempt the people to get trapped. The world has never been kind to him, so it gives him a great pleasure to think ill of it. Ironically, he himself becomes a rat and steals the 30 kroner of the credulous crofter. No doubt it is true that the sad and the poor life of the peddler makes him bitter, and this bitter view of the world is his own subjective one. In fact, the world has no dearth of genuinely kind people like the crofter, ironmaster, or his daughter, Ethla Wilmanson. All treat him kindly. Miss Ethla Wilmanson's compassionate and kind nature eventually touches the goodness in him and helps him to see the world in a positive light. The peddler feels that the world is a big rat trap. He himself becomes a rat when he steals the 30 kroner of the old crofter. Again, the metaphor of the rat trap comes into his mind when the ironmaster invites him to his manor house. He declines the invitation as he fears of being caught with the stolen money, but ultimately he surrenders when Miss Edla Wilmanson persuades him to come to her house where he receives nothing but kindness. The peddler comes out as a person with a subtle sense of humor. How does this serve in lightening the seriousness of the theme of the story and also endear him to us? The rat trap peddler is shown to have a subtle sense of humor, which is revealed during the conversation between him and the ironmaster after the truth about him becomes known. He is neither afraid of being sent back nor being sent to prison. For instance, when the ironmaster threatens to call the sheriff, the peddler replies by saying that the whole world is nothing but a big rat trap, and further adds that a day might come when he himself might get caught in the trap. Hearing this, the ironmaster begins to laugh and drops the idea of calling the sheriff. His letter with the Christmas present to Edla is yet another example which shows the humorous side of the rat trap peddler. He leaves behind a letter for Miss Edla Wilmanson in which he calls himself a rat and signs the letter as Captain Wanstale. Thus he lightens the seriousness of the theme of the story when he jokingly mocks himself and calls himself a rat. The reader's sympathy is with the peddler right from the beginning of the story. Why is this so? Is the sympathy justified? The reader's sympathy is with the peddler right from the very beginning of the story. The peddler's business is not so profitable, so he has to resort to both begging and petty thievery to make the both ends meet or to survive. With his cheeks sunken and his clothes in rags, hunger gleams in his eyes. No one can imagine how sad and monotonous life can appear to such a vagabond who plods along the road left to his own meditations or thoughts. The world has never been kind to him, so it gives him a great pleasure to call it a rat trap and think ill of it. Whenever he asks for shelter in the night, he is either chased away or is looked down upon by people. The blacksmiths at Forge glance at him only too casually and indifferently. The master blacksmith nods a haughty consent without even honoring him with a single word. Thus, we can see from the story that the poor and the lonely peddler is not treated very kindly by the people. The old crofter gives him shelter for the night, as he has neither wife nor child, and feels happy to get someone to talk to in his loneliness. The ironmaster mistakes him for an old regimental comrade. Only Edla Wilmanson, the ironmaster's daughter, behaves with him in a kind and friendly manner. Her nice treatment awakens the essential goodness in him, and he redeems himself by returning the stolen money. Thus, we can see that the sympathy is well earned as well as well justified, too.